our last speaker is another friend of mine, Wendy Chan, who will be talking about my imperfect model minority student. Excuse me, sorry, my imperfect model minority story. And Wendy is currently working as a marketing communications manager for LiDAR, which is a tech company in Silicon Valley. She helps brands create, communicate, and deliver online and offline experiences, and also enjoys a good laugh and a slice of cheesecake in that order. All right. So, Wendy, welcome. It's all yours.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Oscar. Wow, I got to stick around for the panel a little bit, and I don't know how to follow. So, yeah. So I want to appreciate the privilege to be able to speak today. And I think my story will kind of echo a lot of things most of you have said on the panel. So hopefully my story is one of many and give you some inspiration, maybe give you some takeaways. So I'm going to share my screen. Yes, so this is going to be a bit of my story. And like I said, I wanted to kind of maybe probably echo a lot of the different experiences that a lot of the panelists actually had. So could you go to the first slide for me, Oscar? So not that anyone needs a definition, but wanted to get a proper definition of what a model minority is. So it's a cultural expectation placed on Asian Americans as a group that each individual will be smart, wealthy, hardworking, self-reliant, living the American dream, submissive, obedient, uncomplaining, and spiritually enlightened, and never need of assistance. So I don't know how many of you, follow this to a T, but I think on the surface, a lot of times we were very hardworking. But I would say for me, I fall short in a lot of ways in meeting this expectation. And then you'll hear that through my story, and more or less. So yeah, could you go to the next slide for me, Oscar? So I wanted to start off with sort of not the end, but just where I'm at in some of my results. So this is a bit of a flex for me. So I live in the Silicon Valley in the Bay Area in California. I live on my own. So I think for me, that's quite a bit of accomplishment to be able to, be also a female living on my own in the Bay Area. I went to a pretty competitive high school, which was ranked one of the, I believe, top 1% in California, called Lynbrook. I went to UC Davis. I majored in managerial economics and graduated in 4 years. Been working the last 7 years full-time in the Silicon Valley as a marketing professional. And there's some of the companies that I've gone to work at. And along the way, I also had a small business running an e-commerce online store selling beauty products. So I would say all around, I've done a little bit of different things. I wanted to share that a little bit to kind of give you, just some of the results that I've gotten so far. So could you go to the next slide for me, Oscar? On top of that, different opportunities I've had to, tour different operations and plants in, different Fortune 500 companies, different speaking, small talks, as well as conferences and conferences I've gotten to travel for work that were paid for and had different opportunities there. So, which I feel very grateful for. And yeah, so all in all, a little taste of what I feel like I've personally accomplished. Wanted to take it back to just who I am behind, all of that. So my name is Wendy. So I'm 29 years old, and I am first generation, like many of you on this call, Chinese American, where my family is from a smaller village in China called Toisan, which very much is kind of a rare breed nowadays, especially those living in the United States. You can almost say that Toisan people are kind of like San Franciscoans within California. So we are definitely Chinese, Just like if you're a Californian, you're also a, doesn't necessarily mean you are also a San Francisco native, right? So kind of a small set, kind of a minority within already a minority group. So I was born in California, and I was raised by a single mom. And I think having a single parent, it's very common to pretty much kind of be very like expected to, pull your bootstraps, and there's no coddling. So you kick, fight, and scream for everything you want. And I think, that taught me that, yeah, you got anything you want in life, you really have to, you have to go out there and pursue it, right? And my sister had a very similar experience. And I believe she tried to be on this call with me too, to hear my story. So she was very much kind of a second mom growing up. And so she sort of co-parented in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I mean, as you kind of expect, with one single parent, you only have one income source. So grew up pretty low income. And I think a part of that, you don't have as many opportunities, because whether we like to admit it or not, finances have a part in play in, opening doors, maybe where you're at, or even the schools you go to, right? So I very much felt that really impacted, yeah, just like how I saw my other peers maybe had certain advantages that I didn't, and you had to work harder and smarter, or be smarter than, yeah, what's expected, right? So that's a little bit about my family background. So the next slide for me, Oscar. And so, yeah, I wanted to also share a little bit about my journey in my formal education, because I think a lot of you just resonate on, kind of the myth or idea that school is definitely a one milestone, being a first gen that was supposed to be unlock, all the things to be successful, right? And as kind of a lot of people in the panel said, it's not really that, not that easy, but it's not as clear as what that is, right? So I think being Asian, the standard is very much kind of like how I wrote in this presentation, your A, B, C, D, Fs, where the rule book is, if you get an A, is considered average. B, you're below average. C, you can't have dinner. D, don't come home. And if you get an F, seriously, just find a new family. So I very much had that instilled in me growing up. And it's a very common experience and mindset to have. And so the pressure to perform is pretty high. So I would say that I was pretty much like a B plus student all around. So I would never have said that, yeah, like I got all straight A's, and I struggled, I would say, especially in my high school years. And I think one, because the environment was very competitive, which I kind of see that as, I guess the advantage to go to university, you kind of already kind of have that edge, but yeah, very much, I would say struggled in that aspect. So I brought mostly B grades, and I think formal education, has its place, and I think I have some opinions around that. But I think it definitely opens doors, and just, I think, expecting more from yourself, and having something on paper. But I wouldn't say, at least what I've learned so far, is the exact formula to being successful, because you can always learn, getting for education is supposed to be to learn. Learning can happen beyond the four walls of school, beyond the four walls of work. So I definitely believe in self-educating, reading, very much, networking, getting around the right people, etc. Right. So but that was my experience going through just education in those institutions. So next slide for me. Yeah, so a little bit going after school, going into the workforce, as many of you, will end up going to. These are just all the positions I've held in my accomplishments there. And I would say post college, the workforce really changes you, I think, as a person. What it took to be successful or what hard work was in school was very different in the workforce, right? You kind of are on a different schedule, your mindset changes, your priorities, and your commitments, right? So, and now you have, I guess, in some ways, I learned how to be more life responsible, right? So I think that, all the opportunities that I've kind of got on my paper here, yeah, it was very much solo. So I think a lot of people kind of share that similar experience where, you don't have a big network of like, especially like in your family, to have like a blueprint to follow, right? And you very much either get scrappy, you get resourceful. And I wasn't really great also at reaching out for help because, if you reach out for help, it almost seems like you don't know what you're doing or it's a sign of weakness. And so I think, I guess, rechecking that because, yeah, people are willing to help. You just need to, ask nicely. And yeah, and I always feel like networking is not always, you do something for me and I do something for you transactional, but it's building like genuine relationships, right? So yeah, that is my post-college experience there. Next slide. Yeah, so I wanted to list, no, by no means am I like Oprah where, I have all this wisdom, but, I would say a lot of things in between, life, relationships, etc., play a big part in, I guess, my journey to just understanding what I want and how to live authentically, I would say. And, you know, the first thing I wrote is, having a loving and supportive family is truly a advantage in life, and a privilege because not everyone has, those relationships. You can sometimes, yeah, can guide you, right, and etc. So, making mistakes is okay. And kind of going back to my formal education, I think school doesn't always encourage, that you can make mistakes, but mistakes is how we learn and improve, right? Your mental health is very important because you only have one. What are my values that are important to me? I never really considered that as, yeah, something that I need to ask in life. My ideas around marriage and kids have evolved, and very much that, yeah, in a positive direction because there shouldn't never be any like, you have to do XYZ at a certain time in your life, right? So, um, and how to balance work and life, because life can get overwhelming. And are we working to live or are we living to work, right? And just other questions I've asked myself, what does it mean to be successful for me? Because everyone defines what it means to be successful differently. Is it buying a house? Is it making X amount of money? And do you want a certain amount of time with your relationships? And again, I never really considered that, or thought about beyond what we're doing for our yeah, for our work and jobs, right? So next slide for me, Oscar. Yeah, I don't know if there's any practical takeaways that I can share here, but these are just some things I've learned and applied myself, and taking away. So getting around like-minded people is important to me, just like everyone, networking. So I try to network, and go do something at least quarterly, that's in my industry, or maybe even outside of that, or change my different friend groups, because I think I learn a lot from other people just as much. And success is an inside out job. So I try to read 15 minutes a day, to, yeah, have something positive. I feel like doing that in the morning really gives me sort of an edge, right? Because you set your mind right. And when you set your mind right, you can take on more throughout the day, right? When you feel like you're behind the 8 ball, that's when I go into a bad place. Negotiating. So I never really did this in my early part of my career. So I really would advise anyone in their early stages to know what you're worth. I know in the very beginning, you want to take anything that'll pay. But that's, I think that's true and not true, because when you get a little experience, like you should be looking out for yourself and almost being selfish to, not lowball yourself, and knowing your worth is really important through, job searches, and, not because people will, you teach people how you want to be treated. And so having the numbers and things. So I put down just a couple of very popular negotiation tools. I use salary.com and PayScale on both of those to, what you should make me in like a median, right? Being a forever student of your craft. If anyone's heard of the 10,000 hour rule, and how do you find more opportunities, right? Or create more opportunities for yourself. And, it's kind of a general advice to be saying that, when you're good at what you do, people go find you, right? So what I do is try to invest in continued education, online courses, reading, and kind of very much, also finding people that can mentor you has been, I know other people in the panel said that, because if you're not truly learning from someone who's better and sharper than you, you're not truly getting ahead. So I have been trying to seek out other professionals in my arena that I can learn, not just the XYZs of this is how you do something, but also maybe the outside things that contributes to you being a high performer, right? So adopting a winning mindset. So I put those two books, especially Brene Brown's Material, because I really love her outlook, because things happen in life, and I like to try to adopt the you're a victor, not a victim of your situation. So so I wanted to write something profound here, and kind of just coming out of Halloween. So the scary thing is your fate is in your hands, but the exciting thing at the same time is your fate is in your hands. So so that is my talk for today. Thank you so much for letting me share. I don't know if, any part of it resonated. I hope maybe it inspired someone, my story, but I'd love to, take any time to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And folks, I can attest to Wendy's here networking, because I put out a call for speakers whenever it was, a couple months ago, and Wendy through LinkedIn reached out to me, and she reminded me that we met at a workshop that I did, and she's very gracious. And that workshop, I think it was probably maybe like, I don't know, Wendy, 5-6 years ago or something like that. But she is a great networker. Thank you. Let me see if there's any, sorry, Angelica, any questions in the chat or anything that stands out? I was having a little difficulty seeing the chat in a minute here, but any questions?
We have lots of praise and lots of thank yous, Wendy. I got a lot of good laughs from my end. I did take a screenshot of your A, B, C, D, and F. I believe that's why my brother learned how to cook so young. But yeah. Yes. Oh, we do have a question here. What is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Okay. Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. My younger self, I don't know. That's a good one. I would say like not to be shy, but that's not really an advice. But yeah, I think the mistakes one, kind of what I mentioned there, like, being comfortable with making mistakes. Yeah, that's having that perfectionist mindset. Yeah, I would say that would be my number one.
Yeah, that's a big one, and a tough one. It's simple, you hear it, but it's a tough one to do, right? To like, be willing to make mistakes, because society in general punishes us for making mistakes. I mean, education system, you get an F, you're a failure, something wrong with you. You make a mistake at work, you could get fired, right? I say something wrong to my mom and dad when they were alive, they could smack me across, whatever. But no, you're right though, Wendy, getting comfortable with making those mistakes and picking ourselves back up. Fantastic. Anything else, Angelica, in the chat?
I believe that's it.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, thank you again for your presentation and sharing your story. And I love these type of talks where when we share our story, but with some life lessons there. And so thank you for the courage to share it with us. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you very much for your time. Okay.
Thank you.